stickers, by the way, that I have called Master Cheeks. 343 was going to replace me and Jen as the voices of our respective characters. The other chief, is supposed to leave the room and go into battle, and I couldn't get him out of the goddamn room. At some point, you're not quite sure who is the human and who is the machine.
You're watching convention coverage.
This is Nicholas's first convention ever.
I believe it is, yeah.
So for Echo-092 I mean, this is the first time he's ever been to a show, and I think he was pleasantly blown away by everything. That the outpouring of sentiment for his character, too, I think was really, really...
Yeah. Well, it was interesting yesterday. We talked, and I don't know if any of you were at the panel yesterday when it was the four of us, including yourself. It was enlightening for me. That's sometimes the cool thing about these panels. Even with Jen and I, who have done it a lot of times, she will say something and I'll be like, really? Did we, it's just, something new that you learn. And then at a couple of conventions ago, I had the opportunity to do a panel with Nolan North, who is a great talent and a great guy. And it's just fun, we sort of, we're all sort of kind of ships in the night, and Yuri Lowenthal, who's here, and his wife, Tara Platt. Yuri and I met, and Yuri and Tara and I met, he reminded me, at the very first convention they had ever done, which it was either in Toronto or Montreal or something, but, and that was a great time, and then we never saw each other again until this weekend, so... it can be old home week for us voice actors as well, so it's a lot of fun.
That's cool. I mean, try to bring everybody together as much as we can.
Exactly.
Especially for all you out there. So thank you for being here, and definitely, Steve, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, my pleasure, always. Can't keep me away.
How long Halo's been running? What do you find the most interesting about Master Chief and how intense and grisly he is?
To me, the challenge of playing him has always been trying to find the tension between a character who has emotions but doesn't know how to express them. It's literally, and in fact, and this really comes to light actually in the TV show. Where the emotions of Spartans are literally bred out of them. And as the famous scene, if anybody's seen the TV show, where you get to see Master Chief's butt, that scene as they're removing the anti-emotive chip or whatever it was, which spawned a whole new line of stickers, by the way, that I have called Master Cheeks. So on sale now. But so to me, the dynamic of finding that tension so that you as the player can feel it. Obviously, you can't see the Chief's face, so you can't do it that way. And his dialogue is somewhat restricted. But I mean, this came to light, especially in Halo 4, is trying to find that thing so that you as the player and the viewer could sense it. And that's been the most interesting thing about portraying him. That's been the most interesting thing as an actor to play that character is finding that tension.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with Jen Taylor being on the TV show as well, would you be open to doing a cameo or a character on the TV show?
You could talk me into it.
Okay, cool.
Maybe. Sure, of course, I'd love to. It'd be a gas. I haven't been asked yet, but part of there's a pretty good physical barrier there. They shoot the program in Budapest, excuse me, and I think this year they might be shooting some things in Iceland, I hear. But and I'm not in either one of those places, so for them to bring me over for a walk-on might not be. But maybe one of these days. I know a lot of people talk about it, so maybe if word gets back, they'll do something. But it would be a blast. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun, especially with Jen on set. Would be very cool.
Thank you.
We got to fly this Steve guy out. Who is this guy?
Yeah, who is this guy? Then me and Pablo Schreiber could arm wrestle, and that'd last about 10 seconds.
I've been following Halo since the beginning, and it has been a joy to me and just a full range roller coaster of emotions and feelings. The one that hit me the hardest was the ending of Halo 4, that moment between Chief and Cortana. So I want to know, as the voice of Chief, I felt like he was crying to the extent he can. As the voice of Chief, how do you feel he would have been?
Well, interesting story. So when it came time to record Halo 4, and I've told this story before, so it's not really a secret anymore, but the 343 was going to replace me and Jen as the voices of our respective characters, and they had 2 other people picked out. It didn't work out. As they would have people play the game, they didn't like the fact that Master Chief didn't sound like he used to, and Cortana didn't sound like she used to. So when it came time for them to sort of come back and go, hey, we kind of like you doing that character again. The test script, part of I believe, part of their hesitation might have been, are we up to speed or up to snuff as actors to be able to raise the emotion of these characters considerably from what had happened in 1, 2, and 3. And so the script that they gave me was some of the dialogue from those final scenes in Halo 4. And again, Master Chief doesn't cry, at least not that we know of. And I think it rusts the Mjolnir or something. But it was trying to push it to that limit, okay? And then when Jen and I actually recorded that, and Jen and I had not known each other. We didn't know each other at all for the first 10 years of Halo. We had never even met until the 10th anniversary of Combat Evolved. And then shortly thereafter, we began work on Halo 4. And when we're in the studio and we were getting ready to do those scenes, I said to her, look, Jen, I may reach out for your hand to help me be in character while I'm recording this, so it will just help me if I can have a physical contact with you. And she didn't know me that well because I didn't want her to freak her out. I was like, get your hands off of me. So she said, sure, of course. So we started doing the scene, and I got so tunnel vision about it that I did not reach out for her hand. And when the scene was all said and done, and she's standing there like this, she's like, dude, you left me hanging. What the hell? And I just, just was so inside of myself, I think, at that moment. But yeah, it was probably one of my favorite moments in the studio voicing Master Chief was that particular scene that we did.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you've ever played the Halo games, what goes through your head when you're playing as yourself?
Well, you are looking at the worst Halo player on the face of the earth. I will tell you right now, I suck at Halo. So my one brief experience was when Halo 2 came out. And the mistake that I made is I lacked a 12-year-old to be nearby to show me what to do. I wish I would have I tried to figure it out by myself, and man, I had not clue one. So I don't really have a lot of that experience that you're talking about. Halo 2 opens, and at some point after the "I need a weapon" line, Chief is supposed to leave the room and go into battle, and I couldn't get him out of the goddamn rooms. He never really had a shot. So I've never really had that experience, but I've watched all the cutscenes, all the cinematics of all the games, and I kind of view it as like a little movie, and it's fun to watch, and it's really fun to watch, people like you who do know how to play, and watch the integration of the playing of the game with the story, and so I'm always an interested observer when it comes to that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Was there a change in mindset when you were acting as Master Chief between previous Halos? So from before Infinite, because when I was playing Infinite, I seen Master Chief as more doubtful in himself.
As more what?
Doubtful.
Yeah.
Because in previous games he was always just going straight forward. He just I'll do what I can. It doesn't really matter. But in Halo Infinite he started slowing down and going more towards his emotions, because certain scenes he kind of like starts grieving for Spartans, especially when they die in front of him. So was there a change in mindset when you were playing him in Infinite compared to other Halos?
Well, I think the story, because Halo Infinite does sort of pick up where Guardians left off in a lot of ways, and Master Chief's world had pretty much been turned upside down. He lost the only intelligent being that he had any feeling for at all, which was Cortana. Now he finds him, and then he gets his ass kicked, and is, thrown out into space, and through, luck is discovered by the pilot. So when he finally comes around, he's with this guy who's like freaking out, and we got to get out of here and all that. And then is introduced to the weapon, who is now, almost a giddy teenaged version of Cortana. So I mean, I think of my overall arc of Master Chief at that point was he was thinking, what the hell is going on? And I think for you to pick up that you were seeing him in more doubtful mood. I think he's just trying to figure out what this new world is, and his new how to deal with what he has, which is a immature AI and a soldier who is wants to get the hell. All he wants to do is get the hell out, and yet there's work to be done. So I think your perception of that he was doubting himself would be an accurate one.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there any chance that considering the Spirit of Fire, the crew of the Spirit of Fire has encountered Aatrox, before Master Chief. Mm-hmm. Would Jerome-092 and Master Chief actually meet up together and plan against Aatrox in the future without breaching any NDAs?
Yeah. My answer to that would be okay. I really don't. I think you may have asked me this question before. I always say that we as voice actors are on a need-to-know basis when it comes to what's happening down the line with the games that we're working on, and 9 times out of 10, we don't need to know. So I don't really have any information to impart about what may be coming in Halo because I don't know any. What I can tell you, and this is no secret, is they're not looking at doing a Halo 7, for example. They're releasing chapters that build or branch off of Halo Infinite, and that's all they've already done. I think 1 or 2. This whole Lone Wolves, sort of branch that comes off of Halo Infinite, and I'm sure, I would assume that at some point we're going to go back into the further adventures of Master Chief and the weapon and the pilot and where they may go. But that's only an assumption of mine. I don't really have any hard information. So that and the other storylines you're suggesting, I have no information as to whether that's going to happen or not. They don't tell me nothing because I'd blab it all to you. So
I guess that's fair.
Sorry. Okay.
That's okay. Thanks, Chief.
Sure.
Don't tell Steve, he's going to spoil everything. Don't tell Steve, he'll spoil everything.
That's right, he'll spoil everything. Can't keep his mouth shut. For a character who never talks, he can't keep his mouth shut.
If you were to choose one trait from Master Chief, be it physical or mental, which would you adopt and why?
Probably his courage. That would be, yeah.
Yeah.
He's pretty much a fearless, kind of guy, and his loyalty to his friends and his service, I think are extremely admirable. So I think that, and is willing to be able to jump out into open space and go from spaceship to spaceship and blow up huge bombs. That'd be
And
a
he's
nice
super
trait,
yoked.
could solve a few problems, with that right now. But yeah, that would be, honestly, that would be my, what I would probably want to adopt.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
It's about, throughout all these years of you and everyone else that voices these, infamous characters at this point, or less infamous, more famous, I guess, but has any of the character rubbed off on you at all? or has it more or less just been a complete separation between the two?
You know, not that I'm consciously aware of if that any of Master Chief's characters rubbed off on me. Not that I'm consciously aware. I would hope, because I think, you know, most of his traits, as I said in the previous question, are admirable traits. So I'd like to think so, but I can't say. I can tell you this, though. One of the great advantages of coming to conventions like this, and interacting with you is you would be surprised at how much you inform me on the character. And the experiences that I've had over the years in meeting people, you know, who are fans at the conventions, have informed me in going into the next, whatever the next game would have been at that point. You know, you're sort of in my head because it's always revealing to me is how the character moves you. And so that information, you know, maybe even subconsciously comes with me when it's time to strap on the Mjolnir and put on the helmet and go in and start being Master Chief. You know, the things that you say to me and the feedback that I get over the years contributes to that. So, however, none of you are getting paid. So I just
Thank you.
That was a joke. They're landing pretty hard.
I chuckled.
What is your favorite moment throughout Halo? It could be like a cutscene with Master Chief. It could just be like just any cutscene, like from any of the games.
Well, I think I sort of answered that. You know, the final scenes we did in Halo 4 are some of my real favorite moments. Both the actual recording of them, because I was with Jen and we could do it together, and then the subject matter of what they were, and being able to see if you could dig a little deeper into these characters and be able to express that in a way that would impact the people who were, you know, watching it. So those were really some of my favorite moments. But a lot of, you know, when we were doing Halo Infinite, I really enjoyed. I think I probably felt more relaxed than any other time I was recording for Master Chief, and I can't fully explain why, other than the fact that I had a great director by the name of Paul Crocker, who immediately we got to know each other before we started recording anything, and had many discussions, and he was completely into the Halo universe. And he was coming off working on Batman. So, you know, he completely shift gears and you know, dove head first into Halo Infinite. And he made me feel so relaxed and so comfortable because I knew that he knew what the story was and what Master Chief was. And, you know, what his range was, where he should go and where he shouldn't go. And it just made me very comfortable. And we exchanged ideas, you know, and I really felt like, you know, I had, you know, maybe more input into the, you know, some of the lines than I had previously. So it was, you know, that whole experience was just a great one. So everything that we did in Halo Infinite was fun.
Thank you.
What is some of your personal reactions, stories, or ideas when it comes to merchandise that you've seen of the Chief?
Well, you know what? The cool thing is, you know, all the fun that can be had with the Halo universe and Spartans and all of the characters in there, and that Microsoft and 343 is pretty cool about it. You know, they let the fans kind of, you know, have some fun with it, and you know, and the result sometimes is extremely impressive. I mean, some of the work that the fan work that I've seen is like, wow, this is really good stuff. So it's fun to see. It's fun to see people having fun with it, because, you know, Halo can be kind of a serious sort of thing, and it's nice to see people having fun with it. So yeah, I dig it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Awesome.
I was just wondering if you had any like songs that you like to listen to, or if you had a favorite soundtrack of any of the
Well,
Halos.
I love the Marty O'Donnell stuff. I mean, everybody who has contributed to the Halo soundtrack has done great work. But, you know, Marty set the tone, and it all comes from him. even though he hasn't participated since Reach and ODST. He set the tone that I think contributed every bit as much as the visuals and the story and the gameplay. The soundtrack that he provided, I think, was. I just learned something the other day. We did a Streamily session with, which was an online Q&A. It was just like this, except we were all in different parts of the country, and it was all online. And it was Jen Taylor and Marty and Jeff Steitzer, who is the voice of God narrator in Halo. Who am I forgetting? Bruce Thomas was, and so we were all there. And Marty always says something that is revelatory to me. That like, really, I didn't, in 20 years I didn't know that. One of which was the original was Marty and a couple of his friends singing. And I pictured it completely differently, but I mean that's where that came from, and what his inspirations were. That theme he said. I wish he was here to say it himself. Came from the Beatles yesterday, and he started going through the music because Marty is a very highly trained. Musician and creative person musically, and he started showing us the similarities between the Beatles' melody of Yesterday and the Gregorian chant he created for Halo. And once he explained it to you, and I couldn't possibly recreate it. If he was here, he could, but it was fascinating to hear where his creative juices came from to create what has become an iconic, almost as iconic as Yesterday. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm aware of a lot of your work history with radio.
Yes.
I've always considered, have you considered doing podcasts or anything like that?
Somebody else asked me about that, and I'll be honest with you, I have not, only because I'm so goddamn lazy. There would be a little work required into putting together a podcast. I think I like more participating in other people's podcasts, which I do, than to develop, one of my own. So I have no other excuse other than the fact that it was like, oh God, that would require work. So, I mean, the whole reason I got into radio in the first place is so I wouldn't have to work. So, anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Chief.
Sure.
I owe you one.
Thank you, man.
In Halo 4, Lasky tells Master Chief that Master Chief wasn't separate from humanity, that he was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a moment where you watched the cutscene and it hit you that you're not just a VA doing a job and go, damn, that was me, and that was your humanity in the work?
Well, I'm not sure if this is the scene you're talking about, but when they're on the bridge, after what they think is that Cortana is gone, Lasky's trying to make conversation with Chief, and that's a full-time job right there, and he says something which I think is the scene you're referring to about Lasky talks to him about he
says you're talking like you're referring to humanity as a separate part.
Right, and the Chief is then reflecting. He's sort of listening to Lasky, but he's really reflecting. And the line that always sticks with me in that scene, and this is when Lasky gives up that he's not going to be able to have a conversation with Master Chief, and he walks out of the scene, and Chief is staring out into space, and he says, she said that to me once.
Yeah.
About being a machine. And I thought that was pretty, that, and to me it touched on one of the interesting components, if you will, of the relationship between Master Chief and Cortana is, at some point you're not quite sure who is the human and who is the machine. And I think that's, there's a lot of, that's an interesting thing to sort of, which I think is kind of what you were hitting on.
More so where you maybe watched the cutscene and said you put part of yourself.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you try to do that in everyone. I mean, if you can't do that, then you're not doing your job. You have to, any actor of any kind, whether it's voice acting or on the stage or in the film or whatever it might be, you have to be able to find something in your character that you can internalize, and then sort of then kind of spit it out, if you will. But it has to go through your own internal workings, and so that you can identify with it, and you can be believable at it, and so you're always looking for, when I would read a script, I'd always be looking for how can I, in my own personal life, identify with this, and then hopefully you can find something, and then be able to, and then that's how you sort of give that back to the director or to the scene.
Okay, thank you very much.
What is your favorite interaction between Master Chief and Sergeant Johnson?
Wow, I never got to know the voice actor for Sergeant Johnson, but man, does he do a great job. And it probably one of the, of all of the characters who have left us in the Halo universe, probably the most regretful, I feel, is Sergeant Johnson. But to be honest, I mean, that was what, Halo 3, right?
Yeah.
And that was a long time ago. So it's hard for me to remember, some of the interaction, I mean, my favorite one was with, what did he say when they're going in the beginning of Halo 2 for the ceremony, the award ceremony thing?
I told you to wear something nice.
Yeah, I thought you were going to wear something. Yeah, when Johnson says, I thought you were going to wear something nice. And Chief says, I thought you said there weren't going to be any cameras. So, that's actually the one and only one that comes to mind at the moment. But yeah, wish we could bring him back.
Yeah, I wish too, but thank you.
Sure.
Do you know if there were any people or characters that may have inspired Chief's voice or personality?
When we first started, when I was brought in to do Combat Evolved, Marty O'Donnell and I sat down, and we didn't have a physical rendering of Master Chief to look at, so I didn't have that. All we had was a conversation, and Marty, sort of in a very, general ways, described the Halo universe, described the conflict that humanity was facing at that time, and then talked about who Master Chief was and how he came to be. And then at the end of that conversation, when we're talking about vocal style, he said, think of Clint Eastwood. When Clint Eastwood was doing the old spaghetti westerns, for a few dollars more and a fistful of dollars. And he said, there's a lot of similarity between that character and Master Chief. They were both men of few words, but when they did speak, somebody usually died. So he said so that was because you have to have a launching point at some point. You got to start somewhere, and that's where we started. And I would basically, probably in the early takes, would try to imitate Clint Eastwood. But through that, you begin to find your own voice, and so it moved from, trying to sound like Clint Eastwood to something, to what you end up hearing in Halo Combat Evolved. And then by Halo 2, there was no attempt to try to sound like him. I mean, nobody sounds like Clint Eastwood. That's Clint Eastwood. But what you're trying to really capture is his attitude, not his voice, but his, you're trying to capture what's up here. So that's where it started from, and then it progressed from there.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your work in radio was mentioned earlier. Are there any other projects of yours that you want other people to know about?
I do a syndicated radio show called The Classics, which is a 2-hour syndicated program, runs once a week on radio stations throughout the country. I don't think we're on here in Sacramento, but if you find it, it's kind of a fun little show to do. I'd really do it as more because it's fun rather than lucrative. Most of my work before, during, and after Halo has been commercial work. Right now I'm selling Fords. So I'm selling Ford F-150s if anybody's interested. So I'm doing some commercials for them, and that's been the bulk of my voiceover career. Halo was a lark. It was a freak thing that happened, and it still blows my mind that 22 years after the first session I ever did for Combat Evolved, we're still here not only talking about it, but I'm still working on it. And it's really just an amazing, it reminds me of my wife is also a voice actor, and a friend of hers who is also an actor said the best advice she ever got was never get out of line, because you just never know when it's going to be your moment, and you got to be ready. And people ask me all the time, did you have any idea that Halo was going to become what it was? I was like, no, I had no idea, none. And neither did Bungie. They didn't have any idea. They weren't planning on doing a Halo 2 at all. And the game exploded in the way that it did. And then when they made Halo 2, and this is something I just found out recently from Marty, when they made Halo 2, they had no intent on doing Halo 3. But Halo 2 ended with the cliffhanger that, the finish the fight, and people are like, yeah, we got to finish the goddamn fight. So it just, people wouldn't let it go. So yeah, it's been a long, strange trip. But as I said, my workaday world and voiceover is not video games. It's commercial work, some narration, documentaries and that kind of stuff. I used to have a series. It used to air up until I think a few years ago on Shark Week, where I had I voiced a series called The Shark Attack Files, and that was fun. Sharks are fun, that's sort of my deal.
Thanks.
Sure.
And part of this question was answered just a little bit ago, which was going to be sort of how did you prepare for the role? Before there was a lot of lore and stuff about Halo to learn from, but going forward from there, as more and more games were slated for development and everything, how did the sort of direction process and creative process change for the voice? Especially going between, from Bungie making it to 343, did you receive different types of direction, or
Very
did they
different,
kind of let you do your own thing after a
No,
while?
it was, Bungie was, by nature of the fact that the whole thing was new, and especially with Master Chief, his storyline, he didn't speak much. So it was basically, they gave me the lines, read the lines, and by Halo 3, we started to get a little more, have a little more fun with it. But in the first two, it was pretty cut and dried. And Halo 4, as you suggested, we kind of already touched on this, because the story became so much bigger than it had been, certainly in the first two. That the direction became more important, and it wasn't just kind of read it so you get it into the right time, or that you get it the right intonation and then move on. It was like, we got to get to the heart of this story matter here, and that even more so with Halo. In fact, with Paul, my director, I felt like what they were trying to do, both visually, gameplay-wise, and story-wise, was to capture some of that magic of Halo 3 and 2 and bring it into 2022, right? And not just try to take a nostalgia trip, but let's bring some of that, the things that people love about Halo 3 and bring it into this new adventure. And I felt, and I often told people, in fact, before Halo 3 ever came out, what people would ask me about it, I said, before Infinite came out, people would say, if you like Halo, I said, if you like Halo 3 and 2, I think you're going to like Halo Infinite. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's, most of the people I talk to who will say 3 is their favorite game will also say, yeah, but I dig Infinite. So,
Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Was there ever a point in your early voice acting career that you were thinking, okay, if this doesn't work, if I don't land this job, I'm going on my second option? Did you ever have a second option?
Yeah, very specifically. I was in Los Angeles, and I was had just gotten fired from the radio station I was working at, and couldn't find work. And I had, a wife and child, and I needed the money. And at some point, you can hold out for so long, and it's like, okay, I got to get a paycheck. And I had some notion of getting into some sort of writing, journalism, something that because back in the old days when I was first in college, and I was trying to find a career, I was really looking more at the written word than I was at any sort of voice work, whether it was radio or anything else. I thought I had a talent maybe for some kind of creative writing, and so I remember, God, okay, how do I do this? I've never done this before. How do I do I contact a newspaper? What do I do? Thank God I got a job down in Anaheim, California that kept me afloat for a year until I got, hit the big time back in LA. So, but yeah, that was the one and only time where it was a little scary business there for a while. Sure.
I just wanted to ask, what's your favorite Halo game?
4 and Infinite are my two favorites. 4 for the storyline. I think 4, I know when it first came out, the critics were not particularly kind to. I think more for the gameplay than for the story, if I'm correct in that. And but I'll tell you something else. When Halo 2 came out, I don't know how the critics felt, but the fans were not pleased because of the cliffhanger ending. And I remember, I hated that. I hated Halo 2. Well, now it's one of everybody's, certainly everybody's second favorite Halo. And I think 4, and I can tell already, so Halo 4 came out in 2014? Is that right?
2012.
2012. Yeah, 2012. So here we are 10 years later. And I can, especially when people come up to me and, ask me the question that you just asked, it used to be like, Halo 4, really? That's your favorite? And I feel the tide sort of turning, that with time, sometimes, people's attitudes about certain art change. And I think it's happening with Halo 4. So that was, my favorite experience of doing it. And the storyline, and then as I said, with Halo Infinite, I just thought the all-around package, everything about it, was a step up, and sort of proved that 343 could do this thing. And it was the only time that I've ever listened to the finished product, watched the finished product, and thought that my own I had given my best work in it. With all the other games, I was like, God, I could have done it better. I wish I could have done that line over and this, and that's an actor's curse. It's just the way we are. But with Halo Infinite, I did feel when I finished watching all of it that I was like, yeah, well, that's as good as I can do it. If that's not good enough, then I'm sorry, but I felt like it was I had left my best work, in the studio. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming out, and thanks to everybody who has come by and said hello and talked about how much the game means to me. It's really a joy for me to hear that, just because to be involved in a project that has touched people in the way that this game has is it's a very humbling experience for me. So I thank you guys for bothering to relay those feelings. It's really a joy. You guys are the best.